One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. You are wasting time with your content. Ooh, I know, like that one hit hard. You're like, oh, okay, so this is how we're starting today's episode? Well, I am actually talking to the older version of myself, but it's like I'm going back in time and giving myself a coaching call for what I needed to hear back in the beginning. So I got started in 2018 with my podcast, and I look back and I see where I wasted so much time in my content creation process. So while you may feel like, oh, she's talking about me, she's pointing me out, this is actually me talking to Crystal from 2018 and all the ridiculous things I was doing back then. Like, I'm just going to come clean and admit some of the ways that I was wasting time. And I can only see in hindsight that it was just such a ridiculous amount of time that I was wasting in specific areas. So you may be doing some of these too, or you're like, oh my gosh, Crystal, that is absolutely ridiculous. I never did that. Well, we're just going to talk about some of the ways that we can avoid making some of these mistakes, but I had to share them with you today because I do not want you falling prey to these content time wasters. So let's get right to it. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach you how to start, launch, and market your content with confidence. I'm your host, Crystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of content creation, this is the show that will help be your time-saving shortcut. So let's get right to it, shall we? All right, so we are covering 4 content time wasters today, and these are big. Like, these are not little bitty things that I did. Like, this took hours of my life, like hours and hours that I don't want to admit. Like, I don't want to look at a timeline in 2018 and see how much I wasted. But part of me doing this podcast and creating these kind of lessons learned episodes is to kind of air out my own dirty laundry and say, hey, these are the mistakes that I have made, so you don't have to make them. And it really pains me because when I look back, I am coaching my old self, and I want to say it's okay that you did all of that. Like, we're going to lead with love and compassion that I didn't know what the heck I was doing. But also I'm like, really? Like you didn't see it? Like, you didn't see that this was wasting hours and hours of your time? So it's like this double-edged sword of I want to be compassionate and empathetic for my previous self, but also the like tough coach in me is coming out and it was like, girl, what were you thinking? What were you even doing? Because some of this is just ridiculous. We'll get there. Yeah, I got some stories to tell you today. So let's just dive right in. So number one, the first content time waster that I fell prey to for a long time, and I have a feeling this one's going to hit home because I know some of you do this too, but I was over editing my solo podcast episodes. So, I mean, I could just, where do I even begin? I'm stumbling over my words because I don't know why I treated interviews versus solo episodes so much differently. It's like there was a totally different lens that I put on. Like, imagine this like different hat that I put on. Like, I'm doing an interview episode and I'm editing and I'm like, okay, like, you know, I can, that's okay because we were talking, we were in a conversation. But whenever I went, so just let me backstory a little bit to the beginning. I did mostly interviews for the first, it was at least the first 10. I'm trying to remember. I don't know if it was the first 20, but I know the first 10 were interview episodes. And then I was like, okay, I'm comfortable. Now I'm going to start doing solo episodes. And when I started doing that, I don't know why I thought it was such an atrocity. Like, it was a sin against humanity whenever I had in my solo episodes, or there were breath sounds, because y'all, whenever I edited interviews, I was not that harsh because in my mind, I had the lens of, well, this is what it's like to be in just a normal conversation. Like, if I were sitting down at the dinner table with my mom, with my husband, with my kids, like, this is how we would talk. I would maybe go on a little tangent here, or, you know, say a few times, or maybe even just take a breath to pause and really think about what I was trying to say. But it was downright horrifying if it happened in a solo episode. So I put this totally different type of scrutiny on my episodes that were just me. And I know there are some of you out there that do this too, because I have talked to you and maybe you're nodding and you're like raising your hand real like shyly, but maybe you're like in the car and you're like, oh my gosh, like she is totally speaking to me right now. This is what I do all the time. Well, I need you to stop it, okay? I need you to stop being so hard on yourself, because at the end of the day, and we'll get into this here in a little bit about just keep going. It gets better. Someone told me the other day that they said, I am so impressed with your presentation skills. You know, I was in a meeting and they were just like, oh my gosh, like you handled those questions really well. And you were able to go through the whole presentation from soup to nuts. And you just knew like what was going on. And you were able to field these questions and do this. And I started thinking, I was like, yeah, I better be able to. As much talking as I have done in the last 4 years, I better be able to do those things. So I just want to tell you, if you're just getting started, maybe you are branching out for the first time and you're starting to do solo episodes, it's totally natural. It is natural for you to be harder on yourself. I feel like this is our default, is we are our own worst enemies and we are so much more critical of ourselves than we are of other people. So I'm telling you right now, stop it. Stop holding your solo episodes on a different type of pedestal than you do whenever you're having a conversation with someone else. Just remind yourself, like put a sticky note on your microphone, wherever you're recording, and say, I'm going to get better. This gets easier because it does. It gets so much easier over time. So stop over editing your solo podcast episodes. It's such a huge time waster. Now, number 2, the second big content time waster. Y'all, I didn't want to say this one. Like it makes me laugh. Like I'm blushing right now because I really don't want to say this. Okay. I was proofreading and formatting my transcripts, and it took me hours. And this is not like, oh, you did that, but then you turn it into a blog post. Oh, no. No. That is not what happened. Okay. I used to go through every single line by line, second by second of my audio, and I would check the transcriptions. I checked it for spelling, for capitalization, for grammar. Y'all, this took me hours and hours to do. And fun fact, most people don't even read the transcripts of my audio. Okay? I know that there is a small subset of this audience, whether you are hearing impaired or you use them to help you really focus on what's going on. That is a very small portion of this audience. And that's why I believe transcripts are crucial. If you're not doing transcripts, you should, because there are likely people in your audience that need them, that they really need them to follow along with your content. But y'all, let's be honest, you don't have to have it perfect. It doesn't have to be like someone is not going to stop listening to your podcast if a period is in the wrong place in your transcription, or the fact that my name was spelled with a C whenever it's supposed to be spelled with a K. And Otter, you should know this by now. This is my transcription tool, otter.ai. And it always defaults to a C. And I'm like, come on, I've been using you for like 3 years. I thought you were AI, supposed to be smart. Other than that, what that tool produces for me is good enough. And it is good enough for the people that really need those transcripts. So you don't have to take what you said in a podcast episode, because I will have run-on sentences. That's what it was. It was a bunch of run-on sentences that didn't have any type of punctuation, or the grammar would have been funky. I would have had so many ellipses or dashes where I went from this point to that point, and it was bonkers. I spent so much time doing it. And I'm here to tell you, you don't have to do that for your transcripts. Like A- work, which is what otter.ai does for me, I would call it A- because it's still not perfect. It's not. I will be very clear and upfront. I still have to do a few things whenever I go in there, which I have my tips and tricks that I do every time I go to edit a transcript, but I don't make it perfect. It's not worth the time for me. It takes me roughly 10 minutes to edit a transcript now. 10 minutes, maybe, like that's pushing it. That's being very generous in a very long episode. I don't spend that much time doing it. Whereas before I spent hours and hours and hours. But A- work, y'all, it's good enough for me. If it's good enough for me, it should be good enough for you too. All right. So don't spend so much time proofreading, formatting, and editing your transcripts. It's a huge time waster. Number 3. Okay, we've done number 1 is over editing. Number 2 is proofreading and formatting. Number 3. Okay, this is one. This is going to hit home for some of you because you've asked me this, and I'm going to tell you. You're taking too long to choose the teaser content that you are going to share on social media. Like here's a perfect for example, because this is the question. I specifically get this question a lot. Crystal, I want to create a soundbite for my podcast episode or a short video clip from my YouTube video, but it takes me forever to choose just the perfect clip. So how do you decide? How do you pick that perfect clip that you're going to share with your audience? And if you've asked me this question, or you've wanted to ask me this question, maybe you're like, oh yeah, I've been meaning to ask her that. You're going to be frustrated with my answer. Because if you ask me, I'm going to tell you, just pick something.
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants.
Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
Okay. And I'm laughing with you, not at you, because at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be this mind-blowing clip that gives away the best content that you're publishing, or some aha moment that you're like, oh my gosh, if I don't share this, like people won't even want to listen to the whole thing. Like it just has to be something. Y'all, you don't have to. Like I have had people tell me, like this is literally what people have said, and I have done this in the past, so I'm raising my hand here and I'm like, done it too. But they'll say it takes me forever to go back and listen. I go back and I listen to the full episode, and I even listen it on like a slower speed to find that little nugget that will make all the difference, because that is what I want to share on an Instagram reel, or I want to put it as my TikTok, or whatever the case may be. It's the biggest time waster ever. Don't do that. It is way too much work. Y'all, it is way too much work. It should not take you longer than 5 minutes. Like I'm putting a cap on this. 5 minutes, set a timer. That is how long it should take you to choose a soundbite from your podcast or a clip from a YouTube video that you should share, because creating the teaser content, like the actual creating like the soundbite, if you're doing a fancy graphic or you're doing some video editing, yeah, that might take a little bit longer, but just choosing what you're going to share. So imagine you have a full podcast episode in front of you. Let's call it's 25-minute episode. If you are going back and you're listening to that episode, y'all have told me that you do this. You will listen to the episode from 0 to 25 minutes multiple times and say, I just don't know what to pick. Like, what is the one thing that I should share for this episode? And oh my gosh, like I'm putting my hands on my face and I'm just like, just pick something. Pick something. It doesn't matter. And I'm not saying it doesn't matter as in like you shouldn't like take your time in picking it. I'm saying that you are spending so much time. You are wasting so much time that I would rather see you spending that time, right? If it's taking you 30 minutes to pick a 60-second clip that you're going to share on Instagram, y'all, okay, hang on. I'm getting so fired up about this. Because you come to me and you say, Crystal, I don't know how to do SEO really well, and I'm struggling with my marketing. I can't find really good guests for my content, or I wish that I could add in another platform. And I'm like, look at all the time you are wasting re-listening to the same damn thing over and over and over again just for a 60-second clip. Okay. And like I said, I'm getting fired up and passionate about this because I want to see you educating yourself, learning new tactics, having deeper conversations with your audience, or finding new strategies that you can test and try, or creating a new program that you can sell to your audience, but you can't do it because you are spending so much of your time listening back to your own voice, listening back to these interviews, rewatching YouTube videos for hours, trying to find a 60-second clip that you can share on Instagram where 2 people might like it. And maybe you'll have one person that comments, and it's usually the people that are like, DM me for a collaboration. It is not worth it. So please stop doing this. Just grab something and go. Don't spend so much time trying to find that perfect piece of content for your teaser episodes or your teaser clips that you're going to share on social or with your audience in some other way. Oh, okay, I'm calming back down. I don't have my Apple Watch on right now because I was just thinking, I wonder what my heart rate is right now because I feel it. I feel my heart beating in my chest. And I just get so fired up about this, y'all, because you've come to me and you say, I want to learn new things. I want to do this. And I'm like, I'm trying to show you where you can pick up that time to be able to do it. And really paying attention to these time wasters will help you get there. So let's talk about the last one. So number 4, the 4th content time waster that we need to talk about today is perfectionism and overthinking your content, because you are holding everything up to this standard that every single episode, every single piece of content, every single email, every single social post, all of it needs to be mind-blowing. I've heard so many of you do this, and I'm laughing at myself because I'm going back to that little baby creator in 2018 because the expectations I put on myself back then were totally unrealistic. I'll be very honest with you. There was not an ounce of reality in the goals that I set for myself or what I just expected everything to be like. I was so hard on myself in those first 18 months of creating my content. I was comparing every single thing that I was doing to other podcasters, the ones that I listened to, the ones that I saw that were in my industry, and people that had been doing it for a decade. And I was like, well, if my podcast doesn't sound like Pat Flynn's, then what am I even doing? If my show notes don't look like Amy Porterfield's, then why am I even wasting my time? Like, I wanted to have these super high quality show notes by myself and on a very, very low budget. Like, it was just asinine how crazy. Like, I look back and it was completely unrealistic, and it wasted so much time. It wasted so much time of me just trying to be perfect. Because y'all, perfectionism, there's no need for perfectionism in content. All right. It's such a creative endeavor that it will never be, quote, perfect. And I've learned over the years that I'm not going to blow your mind whenever I put out a piece of content. I have made peace with that because it is just not statistically probable. It's not going to happen every single time I hit publish. But I will tell you, I'm very comforted with the notion that your mind will be blown probably 15 to 20% of the time whenever you are a regular participant in my content. And I'm okay with those odds. All right. Maybe you're like, well, Crystal, just 15 to 20%, that doesn't sound like a lot. It sounds like your expectations went from pretty high and now you're swinging the other way and they're pretty low. But let's look at how much content has been produced since 2018. I've published more than 1,000 podcast episodes at this point. Between this podcast, the Profit Podcast, and the Potty Report, it has over 1,000 episodes. And if I apply 20%, right, the 20% rule, that means that 200 podcast episodes have that mind-blowing potential. 200 episodes. Y'all, that is freaking amazing. And to say that out loud, it's just one of those things where I look back to the perfectionism that was holding me back and all the overthinking that I was doing. I never in my wildest dreams thought in 2022, you will hit 1,000 episodes. Never in a million years. I remember thinking, I hope I can make it to 20 episodes. That was like my first goal. I just want to do this without quitting before I hit 20 episodes. Never in my wildest dreams did I think, oh, I'm going to hit 1,000. Like, no problem. It's going to be a piece of cake. Absolutely not. That was not a thing. So to be able to say within those 1,000 episodes, there's probably about 200 that were super impactful for people in this audience. It's amazing. And I can live with that. So I hope that you put this lens and throw away perfectionism, throw away overthinking your content because it is not serving you. So stop beating yourself up that everything needs to be perfect and just keep publishing your content because you're wasting time getting caught up into perfectionism and overthinking that everything has to blow every single person in your audience's mind. It is not realistic. So let's drop that now. Like commit right now. Say, we no longer, I'm like raising my right hand. I will no longer strive for perfection. Say it with me. I will no longer strive for perfection because you will be so surprised how much time you will save when you say, you know what, this is good enough. This is good enough to put out there. Like you will free yourself. Oh, do you feel that? Like your shoulders are getting a little bit lighter. They're a little bit looser when you're not thinking, this has got to be perfect. This has got to be perfect. I'm like mimicking typing on my keyboard right now. Like, oh, this has to be perfect. I need to spend hours on this and I need to lose sleep and I need to stay up until midnight. And I'm like, let's stop that. Let's stop it right now. Let's stop it forever. Perfectionism will eat up so much of your time and it is not worth it. Okay, we got through the 4 big time wasters that are just chewing up your content time. And I just don't want this to happen to anyone else because I have suffered these myself and I want better for you. And if you are listening to this in real time, I have an extra special treat for you because this week I am teaching a masterclass all about time. It is called Easy Peasy Content, 6 ways to save 5+ hours creating each week. And I want you to register for it. It's only available for a limited time. There's only 3 dates that I'm teaching this. So you want to make sure that you get your butt in this training because it's going to be so stinking good. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/episode 374. And I'm going to have links to everything in today's show notes. You're going to see the 4 content time wasters, as well as a link to join us in Easy Peasy Content. This is going to be so much fun. So if you're like nodding along today, you're like, oh my gosh, Crystal's talking to me. Yep, I'm wasting time doing that. Well, I actually have 6 ways that you can save time. I told you about what is wasting time, like where we are wasting a lot of time, but I want to teach you ways that you can save time. You can cut down on doing a lot of unnecessary tasks in your content whenever you apply the principles that I'm teaching in this free training. So again, go to crystalprofit.com/episode 374, and I will see you there. But that's all I have for you today. So if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you're listening to this podcast. And as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Crystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Crystal a text message. And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.